Yeah, hello and welcome to another episode. Probably today a pretty short one for a change of the weekly Spielworxx chat. It has been a very busy week over here so far, and we talked earlier about some deck builders, and I'm still thinking a lot about deck builders. And recently I've played Valley of the Kings Afterlife. And while being a fairly standard deck builder, I like the market very much. It is built like a pyramid with three levels. So at the bottom you have three cards, above that level two more ones, and at the top a single card. And the player may, and of course there are exceptions, only buy from the base level. Then the pyramid crumbles and the cards go down. And here in this example, this mechanic is very thematic because it's an Egyptian theme. But I do think that this mechanic can be also used in other deck builders. Um, First, it allows for a very dynamic market in contrast to static market deck builders. And second, for people who still like to plan somewhat, you know which card will come down and can be acquired next. So well done. If you like deck builders, you should check out this little game. And it is also part of a family. It is from Direct Entertainment Group, Valley of the Kings Afterlife. So really recommend it. And now to ConWorxx, the Spielworxx online convention. It will start this Friday at 10 a.m. EDT, which is 4 p.m. CET, 16 Uhr. The full program for this Friday and Saturday event may be found at my website, and I'll now try also to post the URL. So let me see. If you do not have it, you will now have it over here. So that's a URL for ConWorxx. And on Friday, I'll start with an overview of the convention. Then Andreas Ode Odendahl, the designer, will be my first guest. Afterwards, I'm having the always amazing Harald Lieske as my guest, and Harald and I will talk about gaming graphics. After that, there will be a three-player live online game of the Grand Trunk Journey, including Claude Sirois. And I'm seeing him here in the Twitch window. So hello, Claude. And he's of course also the designer of that game, the Grand Trunk Journey. And Claude will, or maybe he has to, stay afterwards because we will talk about his second game in the Griffintown series, the Smoky Valley. So if you would like to know more about that second release, so you should watch on Friday. And we will also have one Spielworxx announcement on Friday, and there will be also a second announcement on Saturday. So, and of course, I'd love to see you all as my guests and also as participants in the Twitch chat window function here. So that would be wonderful. And most important, this is a convention where everybody should be positive and have a good and a relaxed time. Speaking of conventions, from October 21 till 26, there will be Volvi's first Steam Digital Tabletop Fest. I think this is very interesting because Volvi seems to recognize that tabletop game applications sell well or sell decently and are an important part of our industry. And let me also post the URL here for this first Steam Digital Tabletop Fest. So it's over here. And Volvi writes, a festival of virtual LED plays, panels, talks, and more streaming activities that explore the fusion between physical and digital games with legendary designers, upcoming studios, and you. Yeah, well, but it sounds good. It sounds good. So there will be terraforming Mars, Gloomhaven, virtual panels on games about Mars and on Cthulhu games, and much, much more. And in my opinion, that is a very interesting affair. From Spiel Digital, we hear the same Hyperbole as every year. So this time 1300, 1400 new releases. Well, if you count each and every language edition of a game plus expansions, then this may be true. If you only count, for example, or if you count from Terraforming Mars, let's use this as an example, the English and French and German and Dutch editions separately, or if you list the new Star Wars miniatures for a title from FFG as a new release, well, that may be true, but otherwise, if you do not do this, the number will probably come down to 300 or 400 new releases. And by the way, the BGG list of new releases for September and October right now only counts 392 new games. And here there are lots of expansions too. But of course, this number, if it is 300 or 500, it is still a very large number and probably a number too large to sustain. But this number does not surprise me, as the games were already in the pipeline at the start or before the pandemic, and they need to be released finally because some money, a lot of effort has been, a lot of work has been put into these releases. The problem, but now the problem is how to sell them. So via distribution, difficult. At Kickstarter, maybe. At conventions, which conventions? So there are lots of problems, and I doubt that Spiel Digital sales will be really large. Of course, some games will do very well at Spiel Digital, and of course, lots of companies will announce afterwards that sales were fantastic. But Hyperbole was already mentioned before once, and this means that quite a few companies have to move their stock or a large part of their stock of games into the next year when already new games appear, and there are still no conventions, at least in the first half of the year, I think, and distribution still does not work properly. So this is a topic that I'm thinking a lot recently on the last couple of months, and if you have a special view or an idea or whatever, please post it here. And Albrecht, I'm seeing you here over here because hola roosters, yeah, of course the roosters are here, so it's wonderful seeing you here. And some other, let me just interrupt this briefly, some other very familiar faces here. Mo, yeah, good to see you, and we will talk and play on Saturday. I already saw Claude and Chris. Chris, thank you being here, and I will mention you in a couple of minutes briefly here. And Nick, good to see you. Nick is saying my new wireless headphones allow me to listen to the broadcast and prepare supper. Wow, at the same time. This is good. Well, actually, I'd rather prepare supper, isn't it? Okay. And Spieletreffenverteiler, sorry, is mentioning we have an advertisement for ConWorxx in German English on my blog homepage. This is very nice, and if you like, I have no objections against this. You can, of course, post your webpage here. So thank you very much for this. But really, this glut of games, and I'm, as I said, I'm not thinking in terms of 1,300 new releases at Essen or 1,400, but 500 releases in 2 months maybe, or maybe let it be 3 months. I think this is too much, and if you have a specific view, please put it here in the chat window. So I'd like to see some other opinions on this because this is a topic close to my heart. And getting grumpy right now anyway, I also have to say that I cannot hear anymore, we will or we need to grow our company. Just look outside what growing, if everybody is growing, what this means. A much smarter move would be to not grow, but still do well. This is maybe just me. But anyway, back to Spielworxx. We are very hard here at work on Taros. This is our first release of 2021. And more details on the game on Saturday at ConWorxx. And there will be also some graphics, of course, done by the always amazing Harald Lieske. And Harald, so Harald Lieske and Henning, we will play Squaring Circleville here tomorrow, all three here at Billabü. And more details on that fine game also on Saturday at ConWorxx. And Chris, getting back to you. So regular viewer and good friend Chris, he has completed a fantastic Throne of Allegoria module for Tabletop Simulator. So if you use Tabletop Simulator, please check this module out and do not flip the table immediately as I would do it. So really, thank you very much, Chris, for this. This is much appreciated. Stefan, good to see you. Stefan Risthaus is there in the chat window. He is, of course, Orkride card game, Gentis designer, and a lot of other games. And he was a guest here before, as you may remember. And he's also running Ostia Spiele. And he's saying, hopefully, some people will spend the money they save for not traveling to fairs to buy more games. Hopefully. Yes, this can happen, but on one hand, Turnstile. There were in the last couple of years 175,000 people attending Essen, so that's a huge group of people, a large group. And of course, they come with money in their pockets, and seeing some stuff next to you, so a meter away at a booth, this is very important for instant buying. So even if you're not 100% convinced about the game, but if the price is right, if your mood is right, then you buy it. And I'm not sure if this is the same if you are in front of a screen and you see hundreds of games. They are so close, maybe just a couple of centimeters away at the monitor, but still it's a different thing to buy, in my opinion. And of course, at Spiel Digital, there will be, at peak times, I think, maybe a couple of thousand people, and this is different than the crowds we are used to at Essen. So we'll see. Matt, hello Matt. Of course, Matt, as you may know, is the designer of the aforementioned Squaring Circleville, and he's saying you had me worried for a second that Squaring Circleville was going to be played during ConWorxx. No, Matt will only present the game, but he has also a tabletop simulator module for the game. So I think if everything goes well, so we can maybe open Squaring Circleville, which is the second release in next year from Spielworxx, to blind playtesting. We'll see, but I'm really looking forward to your game, Matt. Let's see. So Squaring Circleville will be presented on Saturday at ConWorxx, and Chris has his wonderful Throne of Allegoria module available. And probably next Tuesday, that is the 13th of October, the Kickstarter campaign for Jason Dinger's Crescent City Cargo and the second edition of Captains of the Gulf will start. And this campaign is being run by my friends of Indie Boards and Cards and Stronghold Games. So stay tuned for more news on that Kickstarter campaign, which will start most probably. So this is right now the official word I'm having next week. So let me see here. Nick, not so long ago, I monitored all new releases for Essen. Last year was the first time I realized that there were too many games for me to cope with. Now I rely on specialist website and reviewers to filter out my sort of games for me. This is even more essential, mindful that there are so few new items, so many copied and recycled ideas wrapped up in glossy packages. Yeah, I agree. Personally, I was never a huge Essen buyer because I do not have to be the first kid on the block with stuff. Some people are like this. They need the stuff immediately, and of course, a whole industry, and some other industry or lots of other industries rely on these early birds, early adopters. Because if you buy it now, you talk about the game positively, then the news will spread, and others people will also be interested. And I think this is missing this year. So Nick, you are, of course, you are still a young person, but I know you personally, and I'm an old fart. So we have seen the game industry for some decades, and we are not buying everything. But there are still quite a few people who buy stuff. But I'm not sure if this, without any physical conventions, if how this trend will continue. So let's see. Um, and yeah, Chris is of course mentioning that he not only did Throne of Allegoria for Tabletop Simulator, but as Claude is here, so he also did the module for Grand Trunk Journey. So if you are a tabletop simulator player, if you want to play worldwide with friends in Australia, with in the US, please use his wonderful modules and have a great time with these Spielworxx releases. So really, as Claude is saying, a big thank you for all your work. This is so much appreciated. And Chris, as soon as it possible, maybe next fall at Essen, if there is an Essen, let's down a few beers. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, well, and another interesting topic, when everybody is reading that the president is paying $750 in income tax a year, you think, or at least I'm thinking about the games of Simon, or as they themselves call them, Come On. So games of that company, and if you want to keep the last game of them that you are having in your collection, because as you may know, Simon is paying taxes in Delaware, on the Cayman Islands, and on the Virgin Islands. So, and well, I looked at the game and I said, well, no, with this really antisocial behavior, this game has to go. So pay your fucking taxes, and this is true for everybody. Okay, let me see if there is something else. Yeah, Stefan, of course, is right. He's saying there are more books out there than anyone can ever read, and no one complains about that. Books are still being written and sold. One small objection here, while this is obviously true, there are lots of complainers here too. That there is too much stuff, and of course, it is true we are living in a surplus world. That's capitalism. There's too much of everything. Too many games, too many books, too many cars, too much of this, too many roosters, hoodies, whatever. But in my opinion, at a certain point, this planet with now how many 7 billion people cannot sustain this, to buy more, to produce more, to do this. Consumption needs to be restricted. Even after, when this pandemic is over, whenever this is, we have to live with COVID-19 anyway, but when this is over, climate change is still there. There are still that many people, and we have to think about our future, especially not having them, but lots of people have young kids who could live till the end of the century. And this is, yeah, well, it it is interesting. So of course, Stefan, games are not special here. We have too many games, but we also have too much of everything else. And so we should think about not grow, but try to live within some limits. For sure, Chris is saying those beers are months overdue after we had to miss LariaCon. Yes, absolutely. So, and I'm still hoping maybe that LariaCon in March will happen. Of course, it's a long shot because it's just a couple of months away, but as a very small affair or a pretty small affair of less than 500 people or maybe 500 people, I still see a chance if they have a good concept to run it. And anyone who is already or was at Laria, as for example Nick was, you know that gaming is at several different levels, so in large rooms, but different levels, and the tables can of course put in a certain way that there is some distance, but still nobody knows what will happen in March. And having spoken to Spiel Portugal, to the organizers of LariaCon pretty recently, I know that they already have a date for LariaCon next year, which they at this moment won't mention because they are so uncertain, and so they don't want to have people register for the convention at this moment. So we have to wait and see what will happen in the next couple of weeks and months. But yes, Chris, if there is a chance to have a few beers before Essen, I'm all for that. Or some prosecco, of course. Um, yeah, Mo. If you have a chance to go, he's saying my dream is to go to LariaCon. Yeah, if you have a chance, you should do so. It's a wonderful experience. It's definitely on par as the best HeavyCon experiences are. It's a very relaxed atmosphere. The Portuguese people are fantastic, and you can play games, you can test games. The Atlantic is 100 meters away from the convention hotel, and it is really lovely. And of course, in contrast to HeavyCon, for me as a European, the advantage is that it's not a long distance flight. For you, of course, it would be a long distance flight. But yeah, let's hope that there are some chances for LariaCon next year. Um, do you have something here for me? Otherwise, I would probably talk about another game that I played recently and then call it a day for today. As you know, it is a very busy week, and yeah, we'll have a longer show than next week. But no, that is not something that I want to repeat. So, um, another game I played recently, that is Versailles 1919 by GMT designers Jeff Engelstein and Mark Herman. So it's a 1 to 4 player game about the Versailles peace talks or peace negotiations. And I think it really shines with 3 and even better with 4 players. And there is a wonderful vessel module, so you can play it online. And I played the game online a couple of times now. And at first you think, Versailles, there needs to be negotiations on the table, so lots of debates and all this. But no, there are hardly any negotiations at the table. There are some, and sometimes you have to talk about a certain thing, but all these debates, Jeff and Mark have put them in on cards. So you have topics like Anschluss or Schantung. So I think there are more than 50 different issues, and you can then put, when it's your turn, cubes on them to show that you have an interest in them. Of course, there's also a tension level between the players. But what I really like, and as you know, I've played Imperial Struggle before. a few times, which I did not like. There's hardly any downtime in Versailles 1919, and so turns move very quickly. And although the game is pretty abstract, what the two designers managed is via the cards. So you have cards of the participants at Versailles or people that had an influence. And you know that Ho Chi Minh, he was at Versailles 1919 as a cook originally. So he was working as a cook, as a young person at Paris, and he has also his card in there. And this gives a lot of flavor and adds to the game and to this theme. So I would not really put Versailles 1919 in my all-time top 10 list, but this is a game I was pretty impressed of recently. So maybe you have a chance to check it out. And as I said, there's also a very good online implementation for Versailles. Yeah, and Albrecht is saying, see you guys next year in Leria. Yeah, Albrecht, let's hope for that. So we will have wonderful days over there. Okay, we are. It's 6:12 here over here. So let me finish for today. And next week I will have two guests here. So this is a first thing. So not one but two guests. So game designer Daniel Newman will be my guest, and Phil Schmidt of PD Verlag. So he is of course a true Spielpunk. And thank you for your time. If you would like to see a special topic discussed in advance or have a specific question that you'd like to ask in advance by mail, drop me a mail at uli@spielworxx.de. That is uli@spielworxx.de. So till Friday at ConWorxx, hope to see you all, and bleibt gesund, Black Lives Matter.